This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scene at the end of each episode, or join us for our monthly movie club Zoom call where we discuss a film together, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
Barbie forever, yeah! We're back talking about Barbie. I've missed her,
Richard. It's the Barbie forever year.
Welcome everybody to the Cult Popture podcast. My name is AJ, and I'm joined as usual by Richard.
What's up?
In another interview episode. Our second interview episode in a row, unless you count Film Franchise Fortnights as individual episodes.
But why would you? Who listens to that?
So yeah, we are back talking about the love of my life, Barbie, Millicent Roberts. Because of course, if you're a fan of our show, you'll remember we recorded an 18-hour episode discussing the, at the time, 37 films in the Barbie franchise. And today, Richard, we have a very special guest to come and talk to us. It is Michelle Buch, who is an animator who worked on a whole bunch of Barbie movies from 2007 to 2020, I think. So you say something now.
Well, I mean, what am I going to say that isn't going to be said better by Michelle? So I think we should just throw it over to them and let's wrap. I presume you're going to put the Barbie theme song in here.
Could do. Should I do it?
Why not?
All right, let's head on over to talk to Michelle.
This is a Barbie theme song to a Barbie movie. We're gonna watch them all, so come and join the dream team. It's time to cut some Popture and do this together. Barbie forever, yeah!
Okay, everybody, we are here with Michelle Buch. How are you, Michelle?
Hi, I'm great. How are you guys?
Yeah, pretty good.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. This has been a long time in the works. I think I got your contact details some months ago, and then we were just snowed under with other work that we couldn't get to you until now. But very excited to talk to you because for those who haven't listened to our entire show before, we're somewhat familiar with Barbie and and the Barbie movies because we, of course, we watched all of them and we recorded an 18-hour episode on it. And you, Michelle, you worked on them. So what an honor it is to speak to you today. Before we begin, can you tell us what exactly do you do here? / what was your exact job description?
So my exact job is I worked at the same studio for over a decade. So I held a couple different positions. Predominantly, I was a lighting and compositing supervisor, but I've also worked as a lighting artist, a lead, as well as a production coordinator during my time there.
That's awesome.
And
full on.
What exactly does a lighting in animation? What do you do? What's the job entail?
Ooh, okay. Do you guys know anything about? I guess I should assume that you don't know anything about how animation works in case listeners don't.
Well, obviously we're also experts, but for the listeners out there who might not know,
animation has it's come a long way from old school pen and paper. There's, for all 3D animation, there's first you get designs, then that goes into modeling and surfacing, and there's a rigging department that puts the bones inside of all the characters. There are all sorts of in-between departments with simulations and animation and making sure everything, shot check or shot finaling to make sure everything's all, to use my mom's term, tickety-boo before it gets passed over to, yeah, thanks Mom. Before it gets passed over to, I was in the lighting and compositing departments. And so we render everything out. We make sure it's all final texture, final animation, final lighting, everything. And then compositing, I've always described it as kind of like Photoshop, but for video, where you can do all the layers and change colors of individual, maybe Barbie's hair wasn't quite the right shade of blonde in one shot of the sequence, so I can adjust that pretty easily with the programs that we use.
Nice.
Yeah. So
yeah, cool. Well, because for those that aren't in the know on animation, such as the three of us, indisputably, is that lighting is quite lighting's sort of the secret sauce of animation. Lighting is how something looks real or fake, really, is whether or not it's lit properly. So would you say that is correct? The expert I'm interviewing.
I honestly thank you for saying that, because we've as a department, everyone's like felt like the unsung hero of the entire like industry forever. So like when I first started in the job, it was not being taught in schools at all. So it was a lot of I actually have a background in like theater lighting.
Oh, right.
Wow.
And so when I first got onto the team in 2007, it was predominantly like men over 30 who were like really into motorcycles and like math and tools and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm an art school hippie. And by our powers combined, they taught me the tech stuff and I taught them artistic stuff, and we kind of worked together. But then when I got into a leadership role, I really made sure to hire for a diverse range, because like the tools had advanced so far that you don't need to be extra technical to use them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm now picturing a bunch of like American bikers, like Harley drivers, like animating all the Barbie movies.
I mean, there are one or two, but yeah.
Yeah. What you mentioned? What other programs that you used to make this?
So way back in the day, kind of, I listened to a bunch of your podcast, and most of the ones that you complained about were used making XSI. We using XSI.
We suddenly start sweating and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But industry standard is Maya.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then for lighting, a more recent industry standard is Katana, but for most of the movies that you see, that Katana was not used. So
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
So
like a lighting specific tool.
you worked there. What can we ask what the company's called?
I believe so. So they've been called it's Mainframe, but it was called Rainmaker for a number of years, and then back to Mainframe again now.
That sounds familiar from when we were doing our research. So you worked there from 2007 till when?
Just last year.
Oh, wow. So would you be able to tell us the comprehensive list of all the Barbie films that you specifically worked on?
I sure can. I spent 13 years at the company, but I spent about 8 of those years on Barbie projects specifically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's about 16 projects, and they are Diamond Castle, Christmas Carol,
best one.
Yeah, oh yeah. I know. I was like, this is the best.
Yeah, what a one to start on, Diamond Castle.
Oh, beautiful. And I was like fresh out of women's college, so I was like, yes. 10 out of 10. Yeah, so Diamond Castle, Christmas Carol, Thumbelina, Three Musketeers, Princess Charm School, Mermaid Tale 2, Princess and the Pop Star, Mariposa and the Fairy Princess, Pearl Princess, Secret Door, Princess Power, Rock and Royal, Spy Squad, Puppy Chase, Video Game Hero, and I did do some work on the streaming series Dreamhouse Adventures.
Nice.
That
actually is like, that's such an interesting, like the full spectrum of like the animation kind of evolving as well, because it is around that kind of puppy chase era that it feels like there's a massive leap kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see that from the other side.
I love when we interview people who have niche expertise like this, and we say something and you see on their face them go like, wow, they really have watched all the Barbie movies. Like, I bet nowhere else you've been interviewed about this and someone's gone like around the puppy chase area, or you can sort of see that there was a big leap. That is interesting as well, because a lot of those you listed feel like they exist as part of different subcategories of Barbie movies. So it's interesting to know that people crossed over the different branding, I guess would be the right way to say it. Yeah.
I was one of the people. There are a handful of people who are still at the studio who have worked on more Barbie movies than I have, but I think I'm in like the top 10 people in the world who have worked on this kind of volume of Barbie movies. So
I like to think that there's a leaderboard somewhere.
Well, I know who would win. So
Can you then confirm or deny if all the animators were like on acid making Secret Door? Because that movie is tripped out.
I wish. I think that it's more like with animation, it all starts with the writing, and actually a lot of the songs or the concepts for the songs kind of come before we even start animating.
Right.
So because that's all like Mattel driven, is they want to write everything and then they hand it to us. Their perfect little baby script, and then we turn into a giant animated DVD film.
Now, I know you're still under contract. There's like certain things you can't talk about, but how much interaction do like you personally, I guess, have with the machine that is Mattel? Like, are you getting notes directly from Mattel, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So for when I was an artist, I had almost no interaction with Mattel at all. But when I was a supervisor and anyone working in production, so like I wasn't, but there was producer, project manager, and I was a coordinator. You definitely talk to Mattel at least on a weekly basis. Kind of here's our latest asset, and then we get notes and note machine. That's kind of pretty standard for the animation industry. So are there notes like, because obviously there'll be like broader story ones like at the script level and stuff like that have like Barbie wouldn't say this and stuff like that, but how specific do notes get, like at like the lighting kind of level? Pretty specific. It really there's usually, we have an in-house director, so all these people you've been talking about, like Will Lau, Zeke Norton, Karen Lloyd, like I know them. They're great.
Sweating again.
No, I'm sure if they ever found this podcast, they would like chuckle. This is great.
Oh,
so.
maybe you could just send it their way.
Yeah. It really just depends on who at Mattel is involved. Like some people. The reason I brought up in-house directors is like I know that Zeke wants a lot of depth of field in his movies. So I know that as a lighting supervisor on Zeke's films, that's what I kind of err on that side, and that's what I deliver. Similarly, people at Mattel would have specific interests, like depending on their own backgrounds, or maybe there's one particular spunky friend character that they're like emotionally invested in. I know that they're going to be looking to see if the purple of her dress matches the same purple in every shot. So I need to make sure that that's consistent. So it's just kind of about being a good for hire studio to these clients, about kind of anticipating their needs and smoothing out any issues that might come ahead of time.
That's cool. Say on an average day of working on Barbie, you go into work, you grab your morning coffee and you sit down.
Presumably in a pink cup.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's just like Rainmaker or Mainframe branded cups, or everyone brought their own cup.
This is the
inside
route.
Although occasionally, and I really did love this. For a number of years, Mattel would send us, at the completion of every film, they would send DVDs and a doll for everyone who worked on the show.
Hell yeah.
And it was just so great. I had this pile of Barbies. Yeah. I've slowly given them away to, children or friends over the years.
Nice. But yeah, so what did an average day of work look like working on a Barbie film?
Yeah. So just like any other job in the animation industry, show up to work every day, work on your shots, technical problem solving, collaborating with the artists in other departments. You got to meet your quotas, have lunch with your work friends, or just eat at your desk if it's crunch time. But the Barbie specific experiences were like singing along to the songs. Just in the middle of the workday, someone would burst into song and everyone's like, yeah.
Man.
I imagine that would have been quite a problem on Diamond Castle as well. So it's objectively the catchiest.
As I mentioned, I can't remember. I think I was the only girl on the team at the time, so I'm just like singing with all these men in their 30s, like all these Barbie songs were like spinning around and twirling and stuff. Yeah, so occasionally we would like act out a dress transformation sequence flourish, which I'm sure you're love so much after seeing so many of them.
Yep.
And radiating an inhuman amount of positivity.
That's beautiful.
so
Yeah.
lovely to know.
Yeah, the positive attitude is a very on brand for Barbie.
Oh, that's cool. That's good to know. That
Pace,
it's not,
positive attitude changes everything.
Positive attitude changes everything. Exactly.
It's good to know people aren't grinning and bearing it, because that'd be so exhausting working through a bunch of Barbie movies while you're miserable.
Yeah.
So, because animation like famously takes a long time. So, how much work, I guess, in minutes would you get done in one day, or seconds even? I don't know.
Well, so
What's the
that's
right way to ask that question?
Yeah, actually, that question is different depending on the department you ask. So for departments that are like asset dependent, like design, modeling, surfacing, or rigging, they measure work by completed assets. And it would usually take several days to several weeks to complete just one character. Depending on technical challenges and client notes, how many rounds there are, how fancy is the character's hair, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
For the animation department, they actually do measure by minutes.
Yeah.
And animation department is kind of the more widely known part of the animation industry to people not in the industry.
Yeah,
sure.
But for animation, like some shots are longer than others. Most animators have a weekly time quota. I can't remember the average, but a shot with one character is going to be done a lot quicker than a shot with 12 characters for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Like
that makes sense.
the dancing princesses.
Yeah,
That would have
exactly.
taken a while.
Yeah. Also, if motion capture is used on the film or not, that's a lot of body animation time that you might need to do. Yeah. Also, if we did use motion capture, you have to take time to clean up the mocap data before you can actually apply it to the CG character. Like, it's all sorts of...
I thought you were going to say, like, to clean up the suit, like, so just like hosing down the suit.
No, when I was a coordinator, I actually went to a motion capture session, and I also went to a voice record for Diamond Castle.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed seeing all the different behind the scenes, and then predominantly for the rest of my career, just sitting at a desk and like seeing the fruits of all of that.
Yeah. What were those? Like, how often do they actually use mocap? Was that being used like right in those early ones as well?
In a bunch of the early ones, yeah. Our studio actually had its own mocap department for a number of years. That actually other studios in town would hire to do mocap for like video games or whatever as well.
Cool.
Because a lot of the dancing, I remember in Swan Lake, there is a dancing scene that's quite clearly mocap. Or I say that because it's a very different kind of fluidity to the animation compared to the rest of the film.
Yeah, so, you can, once you know that, you can kind of tell what's, because I think for 12 Dancing Princesses, they actually had some actors from some famous ballet came in and did the motion capture. That was before my time, so I only kind of know some of it, but... Yeah.
One of those famous ballets.
Yeah. I think it was like the Russian Ballet Academy. I'm not sure.
Sounds right.
I also, to jump back to the question about like what you get done in a day, for lighting and compositing departments, we measure the work by shots, but just like anything else, some shots are more complex than others. How many characters? Is there a crowd? A crowd is an entirely different kind of asset than a character. How many props, but we also have to render the shots. So some technical aspects will drastically increase the time the shots take. Like if there's fur or refraction to calculate during the render, that's just a lot more than, not having those things. Because you have to basically turn on real physics in the render engine. A lighting artist would do between 5 and 40 shots in a week, depending on the shot and asset complexity, how many frames are in each shot. And those frames all need to render on the farm. That all takes time. And the quality bar for the project. So like a feature film will take way longer to make than a TV show, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
You talked about assets a few times there, and we kind of like in the podcast joke about they've clearly just reused assets and whatnot. And there's things, if you go on the Barbie wiki where they try to justify it, they're like, no, this character's playing. So it's like, is that quite often that it's like you'll get the same asset, just like change the hair color?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Totally. It's a huge cost save to reduce to reuse assets or parts of assets. Any for hire studio makes anything we make belongs to the client.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense for them to recycle as much as they can to keep the costs down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has the double use as well of now you've created a cool canon consistency. Like maybe that is the same character from that movie, you know?
It also, like, it lends itself well to the Barbie universe because, like, there are Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
Way back when most of these were made, Barbies only had the one body type.
Yeah.
So to have, you know, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, just swapping out the head. Like, how often is there like a new Barbie made then, or is she like kind of just touched up each film, or is it like there's a new Barbie made for each film?
Like totally from scratch? Probably. I would say it depends on like the direction that Mattel wants to go.
Right.
Because I mean, I've been on some shows where sometimes we had to change it, like when we changed from XSI to Maya.
Yeah, right.
None of the textures transferred. Like you could kind of keep the geometry, but it wasn't exactly the same. Like we had so basically it was better to start from scratch sometimes.
Yeah.
But also it would depend, in Rock and Royals, I don't know if you noticed, like Barbie's face looks a bit different than the previous films.
Right. Scrambling through the Rolodex of the 37 films in my memory to try and remember what she looks like in Rock and Royals.
Yeah, it was just I think Mattel just wanted to like take Barbie in a slightly different direction, so we just we respond to whatever the client asks for.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. Cool. Did you have a favorite Barbie film or character to animate? Were there any highlights?
Oh yeah, so it's probably compositing and thematically. I really liked Spy Squad because it was an action movie, so it was exciting. Instead of singing and a lot of talking heads, there was like backflips and jumping off of cool stuff, and so that was really exciting for me. Like laser maze, and I had to figure out how to do all that stuff in comp and make it look reasonable, and things like that. And also, there's no magic in that film explicitly, which I love after so many films about magic and fairies and mermaids. I was
totally
like, this
agree.
is a great break. Yeah. Also, the villain, Patricia, is just so amazing. She's like this sassy jewel thief with colorful hair and this like really perfect meh attitude. Yeah. And I had purple hair for like 15 years, including the time while I was working on this franchise.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. Perfect. So any character with bright hair, I was like, my brethren. Yeah. So both Spy Squad and Video Game Hero were really technically challenging for compositing. That was really fun to troubleshoot and come up with new tools and new ways of doing that.
Yeah.
In terms of character, I think in the modern era, I love Skipper because she just embodies my disinterested goth inner child.
Yeah. I think I'm a Skipper.
No, Skipper's the best. Skipper's the best Barbie. I'll say that.
Conversely to that, though, were there any things that you come in, you see on your workload, it's like, I've got to do this again.
I've got to animate Bibble. God.
I think just personal least favorite character was in Puppy Chase. There was a dog called Archie.
Yeah.
I really did not enjoy working on that dog. There were some like technical challenges, and it's just not. It was not a fun time. No.
Kept barking. Couldn't get him to sit still. Yeah. Usual dog on a movie problem.
Yeah. I also I think I didn't like. In some of the mermaid films, there was a seal and a seahorse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they were just like, I don't know. I was like, okay, yeah, I spent a lot of time making Barbie's eyes look really pretty. Her eyes and her hair, like that's just such a big part of the job. And then to have this like, weird little seal like clapping for attention. It's like, no, be gone.
It's funny. Like I've pulled up my ranking of all the Barbie movies to jog my memory of like the ones you're bringing up. I'm like, did I like that one or not? But now I'm just like looking at the list and being like, this is insane.
What have I done with my life?
Like thinking, hilarious. Like, did I like Spy Squad? Well, I've ranked it 8. Like, shut up.
It doesn't matter.
Dude, there are like probably about 4 to 800 people in Canada who share that sentiment, who've worked on Barbie over the years.
Yeah.
That's very good. Well, because, I mean, it's good we're talking to an animator as well, because I feel like of all the things we talked about on our episode, the animation certainly was the one, maybe one of the one things we could say was definitely a marked improvement as it went along. I think I'd probably be too scared to talk to, like, what's her name? The lady that wrote a bunch of these?
Elise Allen.
Yeah. I'd be scared because we dunked on her writing too much.
Yeah. William Lau, though, like, I'd just be too starstruck.
He's also one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet. So yeah,
That's good.
You'll be also amazed by how humble he is.
Okay. Well, I imagine as well, like, people know what they're working on as well. Because we've interviewed a few people for this podcast. We usually focus on, like, sort of niche. You know, we're not going to get like, I don't know, insert name of well-known director here. So we go for, like, the smaller sort of less well-known people that work in the industry. And we have discovered, like, the movies that we don't like or dunked on or made fun of, they're well aware a lot of the time of what we're talking about.
But yeah, like, we interviewed one of the writers of Rogue One and got him to settle an argument we had about American Pie.
I mean, Conrad Hilton just lives a few blocks from me. I could call him up.
Please, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do an entire run of interviews.
Yeah.
For
I'm sure
different
Karen would
episodes.
probably love to do this too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, Michelle, if you want to give
You've
us
got
some
the
email
contact
addresses,
I got the
please.
hookup. Yeah. You mentioned animation style. I actually do. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but, like, I heard you commenting a lot in your podcast about how the quality was not as advanced as Pixar films of the same era.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just a few times, you know. Yeah, so Pixar's actually, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Pixar's really unique in the animation industry because they just have, like, a huge amount of funding.
Right.
They had Apple money early on, and they got bought by Disney, and they get the luxury of spending a few years working on each film. They tend to invent a new tool or shader and then write a movie around that innovation.
Right.
So, for example, they figured out a new way to create fur in 3D and then developed Monsters, Inc. and used it for Sully's fur.
Yeah.
Or another hair-related one, they figured out how to make really great curly hair, and then they made Merida in Brave.
Yeah.
And, like, and Finding Nemo with all the underwater stuff as well.
Exactly. Yeah, so they have, like, an entire development, like, team at Pixar, and a studio like Mainframe just doesn't have that. We're like, you know, we make stuff as needed for individual projects. We don't, you know, pay a bunch of coders to go have fun and make underwater look realistic.
Yeah, but does Pixar doing that then, like, have a trickle-on effect that, like, a few years later it makes it easier? Yeah.
It's like, you know, 5 years later, it'll get to studios like mine. Yeah.
No,
that's
really
the same thing you see with the actual stories of things as well. You know, like, the classic example is, like, after Star Wars, they made Moonraker, and it was, like, James Bond trying to do Star Wars. And I feel like watching some of the Barbie movies, it felt like that as well. Like, we'd watch one and it'd be like, why did they make it about this? Oh, because
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Pixar movie. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy had just come out, and then we got the Starlight Adventure. Yeah. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the questions you had for me was if I had any insights into how the films are greenlit or commissioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the earlier DVD projects were definitely driven by the toy lines.
Yeah.
We usually produce 2 Barbie movies a year, which were released with the associated toy lines. I also know that Mattel does, like, annual market research into, like, what's popular with the kids that year.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that's a part of what helps steer the writing and project selection.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's interesting talking about, because the kind of thing we theorize on the podcast is that, like what you were saying about what Pixar does is that it's almost Mattel's doing that with their toys. Because there's the one where it's like you lift up Barbie's hand and the horse bows. And then it's like, which is insane technology. It still blows my mind. And then it's like, oh, well, let's write a film around a horse that bows when Barbie lifts her hand.
That's. I don't know if that's definitely happening, but I mean for sure. You get the technology to. When you put warm water on something, it changes color. Let's make a mermaid with a color-changing tail.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff. I remember seeing so many toys when I was a little kid that changed color when you put water on them.
Yeah,
must have been like it's revolutionizing technology.
It's so funny being able to pinpoint, like watching the movies, being able to pinpoint when that technology must have been invented because it's suddenly in every film that like water changes. Yeah.
Nice.
Were you a Barbie fan before joining the crew?
Not really, no. I'm a non-binary person, so I never really identified with like hyperfemme styling. But I had a lot of older femme blonde cousins.
Same.
I come from my family's from Denmark, so I have like literal Scandinavian Danish. Everybody's
literal
Barbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally all my cousins are Barbies. So I had literally a bucket of hand-me-down Barbie dolls. Some of their hair had been chopped off. Some of their bodies were drawn on with markers. Their clothes had been modified by the other children before me. Like, I don't think I got a lot of brand new Barbies, but I do remember absolutely being in love with Gymnast Barbie because she had fully articulated joints, and it was just like a huge technological advancement to my little child brain.
That's really beautiful considering you became an animator for Barbie, like the one that was all about how it was rigged and how each limb could gesticulate uniquely. That's such an animator thing. That's really cool. That's such a great anecdote.
Playing as a child, I had her lit beautifully, So.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I should ask though, if you don't mind me asking, what year were you born?
84.
One moment.
Yeah, I think am I the oldest guest on this whole Barbie series?
Potentially.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen the Barbie back this far, but okay. So let's see if you've got one or two. AJ, do you want to explain what I'm doing?
Sorry, So you probably know, Michelle, that on the Barbie episode, we would ask all the guests we had on what year they were born, and we could see what Barbie looked like the year they were born, and that was sort of like an alternative to like your horoscope, like your spirit animal, your spirit Barbie, if you will.
Okay, so 1984. Is like the sequel to the 1983 Barbie. So 1983 had Dream Date Barbie, but then in 1984 you had a tuxedoed Ken. So yeah, but then it's like I think it's so Dream Date Barbie and Ken 1984.
Well, that's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now I know.
Yeah. Does that reflect your life in a horoscope sort of way?
I mean, as a non-binary person, yes.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. You literally have a set of Barbie and Ken. That's great.
Yeah, it's the Barbie in the spiffy suit. Like,
Yeah.
You could take Ken's tuxedo and put it on Barbie.
And I did.
Barbie. There you go.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. This is such a beautiful realization.
Better than our like ACAB Barbie.
Yeah. This one's a fab Barbie.
Hey, come on. There you go. That's great. What questions haven't we asked you, Richard?
I'm curious to know. So, what immediately comes to mind if I were to ask you what was the best day you ever had working at this company?
I think the best day was actually on a non-Barbie project, but I assume you're asking for
what was the project?
I'd love to hear either way.
So I was working on Spy Kids, which was a Weinstein Company project.
We actually also have covered Spy Kids on this podcast.
Well, did you watch the animated series?
No, sadly.
Yeah. Well, I was one of the lighting supervisors on that.
Cool.
And that was an exceptionally smooth project. We had a lot of like necessary technological advances during that time. But yeah, there was after the whole Weinstein scandal happened. Yeah, after that happened, they were like scrambling to edit things in the show just to try to make it like less and less offensive.
Yeah.
What was in the Spy Kids TV series?
Weinstein was a main character. I mean, Weinstein was in the My Scene Goes to Hollywood movie, so there you go. There is a Barbie connection.
So we had there's in the season 2, there's an episode where one of the characters goes to a plastic surgery clinic, which is like super dark, and I don't know why that was in a kids show.
What the hell?
Yeah, but basically there was like the villain wants to have this like really muscly, like Muscle Beach kind of, old school Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of body. And the initial draft of that, he just sort of was wearing this like little Speedo, and so when this Weinstein stuff happened, they were like, we have to put more clothes on him. So I spent several days just like drawing more clothes on him and like revising for notes, and I'm like, I love this is my favorite 2 or 3 days ever, because I'm getting paid to like paint a little crop top on this guy.
That's great.
That's awesome. Are you able to share with us like some more of the projects you've worked on?
I a long time ago, I worked on the Ghostbusters video game cinematics.
Oh, nice.
I've done the Spy Kids TV show. More recently, I was on Madagascar, A Little Wild. I also there's a Ratchet and Clank single episode that is now released in Canada. It's called Ratchet and Clank: Life of Pi.
I was reading about this recently. That's awesome.
Well, that's some of my work. So
cool. I'm gonna check it out now.
Yeah. So that I think that like Ratchet and Clank stuff was super cool. Because it's like space battle and little robot.
Yeah. A little robot in a space battle. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like when me and my flatmates have been playing the Ratchet and Clank game that was like made for the 2016 film. Nice. And I was looking up Ratchet and Clank stuff. And do you know what an iceberg is in terms of like the iceberg? Not in terms of, I know you know what an iceberg is. But like the Ratchet and Clank iceberg, where it like goes deeper and tells you all the secrets and inside jokes that get deeper and deeper the further down the iceberg you go.
I've not heard this, but I love it.
So one of them, I think, was Life of Pi. And like it was somewhere in the iceberg, and the video I was watching was like, this is this little short film that was released in some places but not in others. I was not expecting to get an answer to this mystery on the Barbie interview I was
Yeah.
Nice.
I've also worked on like Surf's Up 2 and Open
Wave
Season
Mania.
4. Yeah. Why not? Why not take penguins and surfing and wrestling?
Yeah.
Shove them all together.
Yeah. We've actually just discussed this recently as well.
Did you speak to WWE?
No, I was not a supervisor on that project, but I would assume that some of them would have to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was just an artist on that show.
That's awesome. This is great. This is genuinely like satiating so much curiosity that I have. Were there any, so sort of spinning it back around to like great memories working on Barbie, is there anything that comes to mind within Barbie that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's pretty heartwarming that Mattel often works with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to disclose any details because I'm not sure what's public domain at the moment, but needless to say, it's always awesome to see the kids get so excited to be involved with Barbie. Like, Barbie is legit several children's favorite celebrity.
Yeah.
And they Mattel does a lot of cool stuff with outreach with these kids, so
that's great. And that was a big discovery for us, was like, as controversial as Barbie has been over the years, it was cool to discover like legitimate attempts are being made to make the world better, essentially. Exactly. So that's really cool. Nice.
I also have a hilarious fun fact about a
us.
different film.
Love fun
Tell us.
facts.
So this is a fun fact about Video Game Hero.
Mhm.
Oh,
We got a request from Germany, the country, almost a year after we had wrapped the project.
Yep.
Apparently, German TV laws require that you remove all logos from the actual program content.
Right.
So we ended up removing the Just Dance logo from all of the shots in the final dance battle.
Mm-hmm.
But there were technical problems, so we had to unarchive the files because it had been a while. Which takes about a week or two to actually get all the little bits and pieces you need.
wow.
That
so
sounds
we
like a
didn't-
nightmare, unarchiving.
Oh, yeah.
I've yet
Oh, yeah.
to experience anything where I've had to unarchive something, but I'm terrified of it one day happening.
Yeah, it's quite harrowing.
Yeah.
And especially for our for compositing, you have so many, you need each of the layers
Oh my God.
input, and and maybe there's a matte painting that needs to come into, I have to go find send the exact file path to the tech guys who then will find the specific file and unearth it for me. That's why it takes a week or two to make sure you have all the little bits.
Yeah.
So we didn't have enough time to unarchive every shot we needed before the deadline. So we ended up just covering the logo up with a little dancing hot dog sticker. And Germany was happy.
Yes!
Yeah, that was a comedic high for my career.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you ever see a German TV release of Video Game Hero, you can look for that dancing
Imagine
hot
if I ever saw that and I noticed that without you telling me.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So just on that kind of having to unarchive and do more on a day-to-day basis, what's the actual hardest part of the job?
So the animation industry up in Vancouver is not unionized.
Right.
So there's always tension between what deliverables have been promised to the clients on the contractual timeline and at a set cost versus having enough artists to cover all that work on the short timeline.
Yeah.
And artists with the skills to do it in that amount of time. Because we can always find new people, but finding experienced people to train the younger people, you don't really have time to train and do the work.
Yeah.
It's sort of an either or. So that's forever this difficult balance. Experienced artists can usually do way more work, but we're also older and have reached the giving fewer fucks stage of life, shall we say?
Know it all too well.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We don't want to work the long hours. People have families we want to see. So often we just sort of age out of the industry,
Right.
much like I've just done. That's why I left. So.
Yeah, I was going to follow that up with what are you doing these days?
So I've actually just gone to school for project management, and then now I'm working at a tech company. So now I'm learning about the wonderful world of product management, and it's very similar to making cartoons, making bespoke web apps for companies. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it's all tech in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even
in lighting, I had to deal with all the upstream problems and know who to talk to fix everything. And I needed to understand how data moved onto the render farm, got processed and moved off. And all of that has parallels in the tech industry now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I studied broadcasting and have exclusively worked in marketing/education since graduating, and I use the same stuff I learned. So it's funny how crossover like that can happen, I guess.
Yeah, it's all for me it's data management, and also just having a client have a very strong opinion about a small visual minutia, yeah, and I'm well, great, I know how to surface with a smile this kind of process. So great.
Again,
great.
Pace.
Pace.
Positive attitude changes everything. Pace.
Yeah. Everyone would do that around the studio, pace. Sailor Moon style salute, Yeah.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I think unless there's anything else you would like to add, I think that's just about us.
Yeah, I think the only question was environment in the workplace.
Yes. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a really great work environment. Like everyone was super friendly and passionate about what we were doing. Even if people didn't love Barbie, they loved animation. So it's like you could really, get a fire going, and you could learn how to. I'm gonna make the best damn sparkle you've ever seen. And I only met there was one girl I worked with who was just like this die-hard Barbie fan prior to working on the project, and honestly, having her around improved morale for everyone. Like
that's adorable.
Her positive energy was contagious. So like I just absolutely loved having her on my teams, and we're still friends. So.
Oh, that's good. I thought you were going to say, like, because you said she was a fan before she started working on them. I thought it was going to be like, and she was just beaten down.
No. She showed up to the interview in a t-shirt that had Barbie on it, and it said, "On Wednesdays we wear pink." And it was a Wednesday. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is all I need to see.
That's great. I mean, because that does ring so true, though, that like I think for people outside of filmmaking or whatever industry you could loosely categorize all three of us into, like people probably imagine it's very like grin and bear it, very like getting the job done. But like having worked on projects I wasn't necessarily passionate about beforehand, you do kind of embrace and welcome any excuse to be happy about it and to be motivated about it. I imagine that would be what so much of not just animating Barbie, but animating everything would be like.
Yeah. And definitely. And people, you could find joy in anything you do if you're passionate about kind of the genre that you're in. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't count usually some men who were just like, I hate Barbie, this is stupid. And like, I had seen their work on other projects, and I'm like, you're so good as an artist. How is this not translating here? And then like, I'd have to like have a one-on-one with them and talk to them about it. Just be like, I totally understand that this isn't your thing. So really like think about, do you want to be here, or do you want to be on something else that you are going to enjoy better? Because honestly, you're going to make better work if you do that. So either like, just, what do you want to do? Let's strike a balance, So.
I love that means there are probably multiple men in the world who have had life crises where Barbie is at the center of it, and they're like, "What am I doing? Do I really want to make Barbie?" Like that's such a funny. I'd love to like see that biopic,
On Secret Door.
I love the Secret Door behind the scenes.
There was a unicorn with like rainbow hair. And that was the first character we were trying out a new hair system with. And I think I was a lead on that show, so I was one of the more technical people in my department, and so I had 100% of the unicorn shots, and I had to like, normally lighting doesn't have to hand move things, but because it was a new system for us, I had to like this unicorn rainbow mane was like the bane of my existence for a few months. And I got home and I was so beat down the end of the day, and I'm like, a rainbow unicorn has done this to me. You know what? I'm just going to have some ice cream and laugh about it. Like,
No, that's like the sentence, a rainbow unicorn mane is the bane of my existence, is exactly the soundbite I wanted to get out of interviewing someone who worked on Barbie. That's such a Barbie thing, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
A rainbow unicorn. That's perfect. That's so good. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much for talking with us, Michelle. This was enlightening and wonderful and such a great experience. I hope you had fun as well. Is there anything, obviously you've mentioned what you're doing now, but is there anything you would like to direct people's attention toward or plug or anything like that?
Honestly, probably support for unionizing the animation industry in every city of the world.
Absolutely, I can understand this.
There is one studio in Vancouver that is now unionized, but they're predominantly 2D. And I just want that to spread, because I think it would be a much nicer place if everyone was like taken care of a little bit more.
Oh yeah, and as something as crushing as animation, to not have a union for that is like
they do have a union in LA, but they don't have up in Vancouver.
See, everyone else always just goes, check out my Instagram. You're trying to make the world a better place, and that's what we respect about you.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
This is a Barbie theme song to a Barbie movie. We're gonna watch them also come and join the dream team. It's time to cut some Popture and do this together. Barbie forever, yeah!
right, so that was our conversation with Michelle. Thank you once again, Michelle, to coming on the show. They're not here right now, so
Thank you
I'm not
to coming on the show.
I don't know. I'm nervous.
What, you're just talking to me. We've got to do a post-credit scene shortly. I'm nervous.
If you liked this show, if you like this podcast, then please consider subscribing to it on all the different places. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. There are 2 YouTube channels. One is called Popture, one is called Popture Again, where we post the podcast, and you can subscribe to all those places. You can join the Discord. There's a link in the show notes. You can donate to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/Popture. And Richard, you can also keep listening, please, because as soon as this music stops, we're going to jump straight into a post-credit scene. So yeah, and stay tuned next week. What are we doing next week on the show, Richard?
It'll be Jumanji.
We're doing Jumanji. So stay tuned for that. All right, and welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more at patreon.com/Popture, you get to give us something to talk about. And this, the post-credit scene. Richard, who's it from and what is it this week?
Alrighty. Today's question/comment comes to us from Ben Close. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
There's quite a long comment, but strap in.
Strap in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Stick in. Hey, Culty P, long time no Q. Today I'd like to ask you about the movie Vertigo. A, when is the last time you watched it? B, what were your first impressions? C, what do you think of it now? Or do you need to rewatch it to answer that? Ben has gone in depth with his thoughts on Vertigo.
Tell me them.
I think we can answer them and then we can say what Ben thought and then we can respond to that. So to answer the question, when is the last time you watched it? Only a few months ago, we covered it for our Cult Classics.
Yes, the Cult Popture Movie Club was the first time I'd seen the film as well.
Yeah, and second time I'd seen it. And so and like you can actually go watch on Cult Popture Again about an hour long discussion on the film Vertigo if you want more kind of in-depth thoughts. But yeah, to go on, what were your first impressions and what do you think of it now? So I watched it for the first time when I was at broadcasting school. So it's maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. It's a long time.
Don't think about it. Just keep
God. And I didn't really like it. I thought, like it's weird that they all of a sudden just decide, because I quite like Citizen Kane, and Vertigo famously dethroned Citizen Kane. They just 1 year were like, no, actually Vertigo's the best movie of all time. And I think going into it with that mindset doesn't help it. But I think there is a lot wrong with it. It's not the strongest Hitchcock film I've seen. It's not the strongest film I've ever seen. And watching it again, I felt mostly the same way. I'm still not super wowed by it. I still have issues with it. And what about you, AJ?
I haven't thought about it once since watching it, even having read this question in advance. Spoilers. Sorry to break the magic for you. I didn't even then think, what did I think of Vertigo? I think I liked it. I don't really have any strong feelings towards it.
You'll have to go back and watch it to remember what you thought of it. But Ben goes on to say, I fucking hate Vertigo. I have not hated a movie this passionately since Avengers Endgame. I kid. About Endgame, not Vertigo. I hate the story of Vertigo, and I have an incredibly hard time understanding why people enjoy watching it. It just like you're more than welcome. He does go into spoilers, so you can just end the episode now. But if you don't mind Vertigo spoilers, listen to the last minute of the episode. So he says, you cannot say this part on air if you care about spoilers. I hate the first half of the movie because it's a story of a man struggling with suicide who goes through with it. I just like this of a woman struggling with suicide who goes through with it. I just like this because although I understand it happens in real life, I personally really don't like seeing people lose to suicide. It is not something I deal with emotionally. I know that's a me thing, but I personally believe films are better when they offer hope. There is a delicate balance between not being cheesy and offering genuine hope. I understand it's not easy, but striking that balance would make a great film in my view. And then I hate the second half because it's about an emotionally abusive man with an unhealthy obsession, actively manipulating a woman and changing everything about herself. And she just goes along with it because love. Hitchcock had a chance to turn it around and make the twist actually mean something by having the woman stand up for herself and tell the man that he needs to love her for who she is. But I think Hitchcock just likes making a twist for the sake of it and playing with taboo subjects because at the time it got people interested. But in my view, he does not know enough to handle the subjects with the care they need. I'm sure you don't need to hear more, but if you want more explanation, here is a post where I basically say the same thing with more words. https://reddit.com/r/I watched an old movie/comments/ NOLD40/I_watched_Vertigo_1958 and _I_fucking_hated it_it / And if you're sick of hearing my unpopular opinions, here's a sick prank video that I dare you not to laugh at. https://u2.be/ lowercase l, lowercase f, lowercase h, capital M, capital I, capital L, lowercase e, 8, capital C, 84. Thank you, Ben.
Well then, I agree with a lot of what Ben is saying in terms of what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
I think it gets a lot of its prestige from being from a time when movies probably rarely dealt with such like serious
themes.
subject matter, and I think a lot of people probably really dig how dark it is and how morally ambiguous the main character is. But no, I can't say I disagree.
I really agree with especially the criticism of the second half. It's like, oh, okay, this protagonist, like it is interesting seeing Jimmy Stewart, like a famously wholesome kind of actor, like plays a character that it turns into such a villain, and by the end of it, I think you're supposed to be like, well, but it's Jimmy Stewart, but like, fuck, he's actually been pretty evil, and yeah, and then the ending is just like it just fucking ends, and I really didn't like the ending, but yeah, also, the prank video, I'm sure you would have seen it. It's kind of gone viral now, like in between the time when Ben sent us this and now. But it's the prank video of Dominic Monaghan interviewing Elijah Wood about if he's going to wear wigs.
Someone mentioned this on a TikTok live stream I was doing last night, and I had no idea what they meant. And then so clearly I didn't click the message from Ben, but then... Yeah, no, it is very funny.
It is funny. So Google prank interview with Elijah Wood. Yeah, so thanks for the prank
video. This has
video.
gone on too long. Thank you, Ben, and we'll see you guys next week for Jumanji.